Hey, Guitar Nuts one and all. Welcome to the first episode of Guitar Nuts Anonymous. Yeah, I know, you showed up to see Rickenbacker Anonymous. And fear not, there'll still be plenty of Rickenbacker content. Don't go anywhere. Hang on. It's okay. Breathe. We'll make it through this together. So look, I've done a lot of soul searching. I've taken tons and tons of suggestions, both from Facebook, from friends in general, from the YouTube comments, which I'll mention a few of in a minute here. And we're going to try to be one-stop shopping for guitar people and kind of a variety show, something I haven't seen yet anywhere on YouTube. I've seen, you've got guys reviewing guitars, taking guitars apart, having live chats, which is cool, which I intend us to do here eventually, but not segments to speak of, and kind of, like I said, a variety show. I used to do a songwriting podcast. It was audio only. It was called the Commercial Suicide Songwriting Podcast. It's actually pretty popular, especially here in Nashville. And we had segments, and we had, like I said, we had quite a listenership, if I'm honest, and met a lot of excellent people that I'm still friends with to this day through that podcast. So hopefully the same will be true for this show. Like I said, Guitar Nuts Anonymous. Now, I think I qualify. There are in excess of 50 guitars in this room. At last count, I've owned over 550 guitars and basses, etc., since 1990. I've done a lot of buy-sell trading, a lot of, trading up. I hesitate to call it a collection because a collection generally implies that there's some kind of order to it, which to some degree, I mean, there is a bit. But in general, I've always bought the things I liked and passed on the things that I didn't end up loving as much. So anyway, as I said, we're going to have segments here, okay? And it'll be a show. And I'll continue to take your suggestions, and I want you all to be a part of this. It'll be great. So without any further ado, our first segment is going to be Rickenbacker News. As I said, we're going to talk about Rickenbacker. So dig, this last week, the Kelly brothers and John Hall, the CEO of Rickenbacker, had their big soiree in London, England, where they debuted the new out of the frying pan into the frying pan into the fire glow book, which I reviewed on here, and several of you watched. I guess it was quite the event. They had a selection of vintage Rickenbacker guitars on hand to display. There were some celebrities there. I was invited by both the Kelly brothers and by John Hall himself, which is excessively cool. And I found out that, heartbreakingly, I couldn't go for, life reasons. But I found out that Dave Gregory, the former guitar player from XTC, my favorite band, was in attendance there. And wow, if I needed one more reason to be upset that I couldn't go, that was the reason. Anyway, if you're interested in picking up a copy of that book, I'll make sure to put a link to it in the links down below, along with some other things that you might want to check into. So anyway, that's our Rickenbacker news. Hopefully they'll continue to be news, because it looks to me, with Ben Hall now in charge, that's John Hall's son, he's got some fresh ideas, as evidenced by the new 4005X bass, for instance, which I'd kind of like to be able to give you a bit of a review of, but it's a $5,000 instrument. There is one at Carter's Vintage Guitars here in town, though, so I might be able to stop in and at least get some up-close and personal photos with it, if that's something you'd be interested in. Just let me know. Carter's is pretty cool about letting people take video there. So let me know if that's something you'd be into, and we'll look at that. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit of gear news in general. I assume that most of you out there, as well as being into your Rickenbackers and your guitars, probably a lot of you are into pedals as well, amplifiers and whatnot. And it seems that every time something new comes out, some new big release, all the prominent YouTubers, which does not include me and the 200 of us, unfortunately, but that's okay, we'll grow. They all seem to jump on the thing at the same time, largely because the companies are astute enough to send them, free examples of the item in question. It seems that this last week, the big item in question was delay pedals. After 20 years of being in production, Line 6 has released a revamped version of their famed DL4 pedal. I don't have one to show you. I've got the other DL pedals, but not the delay. Probably the most popular delay pedal of all time, if I had to guess. I think they've sold more units than anything, and it's a cool thing. And I've watched about a dozen of the other YouTube videos reviewing it. It's street pricing at $299, I believe. It's a little pricey, but it does all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Coincidentally, the very day after that was released, and every YouTuber under the sun did a review of it, Roland released their new digital space echo pedals. I believe it's is it RE2 and RE202? You have to look them up. They are supposed to be emulations of their original Space Echo unit, which was a box about big that actually used tape. And by all accounts, they're fantastic pedals. They actually somehow sound like tape. They emulate tape, wow and flutter and wear and all sorts of things that theoretically should be undesirable, but we guitar players love. So I found that interesting that these delay pedals were both released at the same time. It's an interesting coincidence, let's say. And those Roland pedals, Boss, there's a Boss version that's like $200 and some odd, and then the big Roland version that's going to be like $399, which you've got to really love your delay. But again, it's quite a unit. So that's that. So another segment here I'd like to do, and hopefully you'll all continue to, like and subscribe, but most importantly, comment, because we're going to talk about your comments. I'm going to read them on air here, and on pod, on cast, whatever it is, because what you think is important to me, and I think it's important to the community at large here. So I had asked what you all thought about changing the format of the show, what I should keep, what I should pitch out with the bathwater, and I got some good replies. Matt Lott was one of the first to respond. He said he personally thinks I should dance with the one that brought me, which is to say, stick with Rickenbackers. It would be great to be able to do that. Interviews with notable Rick players, deep dives into components and whatnot. All those things would be awesome. But if I'm honest, I've got a very demanding day job. I drive, I'm a chauffeur. And just this last week was a relatively usual week. I worked 55 hours. Plus I've got my bands to deal with, my home life. I've got a life, you know. These are things that would be great, but are probably beyond the scope of this channel, at least now. You know, maybe we get a little more clout, get a few thousand subscribers. You know, I might be able to get some people to come on board, some Rick collectors and things. And I'm willing to travel to meet some people and stuff, if for no other reason than I'd kind of like to meet these people and see their collections myself, you know. But I've got to be realistic here, so I've got to somewhat limit the scope of what the show can do and be. But they're great suggestions. 585 said the format is great. Love to see my collection of instruments and share some gear stories and gigs and show stories and whatnot. And he also suggested asking the big dogs in the Rick Facebook group if they'd be willing to show off their collections, and the same things apply. It would be great, and I'd love it, and it's possible. Now, as far as me showing off my gigs, gear, talking about things, showing things, absolutely, I'm all about it. I'm an open book. In fact, here shortly, I'm going to show you in a new segment. I'm going to show you part of my collection, a Rickenbacker piece. So don't run away. DX Punk 74 said, "LOL, nothing wrong with hoarding guitars." Well, thank you for that. Maybe time to get Operation Chickenbacker going. Too many people are buying those fakes and getting ripped off in the end. Yeah, I agree with that. As far as ordering one for the sake of reviewing it, it's not the sort of thing that the halls would approve of course. You know, I'd be supporting these rip-off artists. That being said, I'm not exactly sure how I would go about doing a review without one in hand, you know. But it's something to think about. If it's something you're all really into and you agree with, we could do it for the sake of of interest. It would never be passed on as a real Rickenbacker. I might even brand it as copy with a soldering pen or something on the back of the headstock before I pass it on. You know, if I wound up with one, maybe I could pass it on to one of you viewers. We could have some sort of a contest or something and someone could get a free guitar. You know, that'd be fine. I certainly don't need another Rickenbacker copy or any other inexpensive guitar in my life right now, other than for review purposes. Let's see here. Bloomington Thunderwood had a few things to say. Bloomington said, my own vote is there aren't really any other Rick-O-centric channels I'm aware of. Yeah, it's true. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to try to keep as much Rickenbacker content as possible because I do love them. They are amongst my favorite instruments. They've been a passion of mine since I was a kid, so they're not going anywhere. Abe Italia said, I don't need to buy more Ricks. He'd just like to see more reviews of my guitar collection, hopefully with a better microphone and some editing. Well, I actually bought a an amateur podcasting setup, which I don't have installed just yet, but I intend to. I'm also going to have a pretty cool intro piece eventually, I hope. Probably, I'd like to have it next week for the next show. Yeah, I'm going to try to do this every week. I've already got my intro music. You might have noticed it's the song Anything But the Truth from the Steve Rippus Tinfoil Hat album, which you'll be able to get a copy of if you'd like. It's shameless plug here. I'll have a link to that below as well, or you can just message me with an address or something, and I'm selling them for $10 in shipping because it costs a fortune to record an album in Nashville. Seriously, I recommend doing it. Just make sure you've got cash. Let's see. Bloomington also said, congrats on the invite to the smoke from John Hall. Yeah, I was blown away. I mean, it was cool enough when Martin Kelly contacted me, but when John Hall himself contacted me, I was just like starstruck, I guess. I mean, you know, I think any of us big Rickenbacker fans would probably feel similarly. So, yeah. Peter Domsky, sorry about that. Peter J. Radomsky said the live chat would be cool. I'd like to maintain a Rickenbacker focus. We're going to try. You did an episode on a Rickenbacker library, maybe a more in-depth review of each book. Well, the only problem with that is frankly, the book review episodes didn't do all that well. By far, viewers seem to most enjoy unboxing and in-depth looks at individual instruments. You know, and in general, not that many people read. I mean, granted, these Rickenbacker books are sort of gear porn. It's less reading and more looking at pictures for a lot of people. And fortunately, in the case of this new Rickenbacker book, there's a wealth of really great photography. But anyway, so those are most of the, let me see. Yeah, that's the whole of the video comments. I also got some emails and messages on Facebook from some people, and it's all basically the same thing, saying try to stay as Rick as possible. They like the live show idea. And I plan to do those as soon as I can. It's just a matter of knowing that some of you are actually going to show up. Because if I sat here just like this without any questions to answer, well, it'd be a bit of a waste and I'd look a little foolish, you know, because I don't look foolish here in my beautiful flamingo shirt. So, another segment, right? You guys want to see my gear, and specifically you're all into Rickenbacker. So this would be a good time. It's an instrument that I don't believe I've ever shown in previous episodes of Rickenbacker Anonymous. It's my 360. This particular one, I believe, is a 2003. Now, I know I should know, and I could easily look it up, but I don't have that great of a memory, especially since I've turned 50. That's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. So, take a look. This started out as a standard 360. It would have had your white pick guards, standard pickups, white truss rod cover, so forth and so on. It does have a particularly striking reddish fingerboard, which I really enjoy. I got this from my dear friend Tom Templeman, former band member from the excellent band Incognito Cartel. Maybe I'll include a link to them below as well. I was with him for 5 years, and we put out 3 albums together. So anyway, back to this particular Rick. When I got it from Tom, he had replaced the pick guard with solid black pick guards as opposed to these multi-layered white, black, white ones. And he actually had a set of Rickenbacker Model 230 pickups in here, which worked because those are black pickups. He had blacked out the entire guitar. He had a Winfield trapeze tailpiece in black, and he also included a black Rickenbacker R tailpiece, which, by the way, if anybody out there is in need of a black R tailpiece or a black Winfield harp tailpiece, I've got a couple of extras, as I mentioned here, that I can sell to you for a reasonable price, and because I won't use them. So what happened was, as soon as I got it, I kind of had in mind the great Paul Weller's 330 that he had in black with the black pick guards and whatnot, and he had a Gibson style stop bar tailpiece. First thing I did was swapped out the all black plastics for the black, white, black multiply. Kept this truss rod cover, of course. And at the time, I had a Model 230 guitar, which I did show you on the channel before. It had these interesting gold foil style pickups in it, and they sounded great. Now, if I'm honest, that 230, I did not like that guitar. It didn't play well. It wasn't a matter of setup, because I've been setting up guitars for, gosh, nearly 30 years. I just didn't like the way the neck felt. I didn't like the shape. As I understand, the next owner loves it, so different strokes. Anyhow, when I was ready to sell that 230, I thought I would do best to have the original pickups in it. So I basically did a crisscross, put the 230 pickups in the 230, and put these gold foil things in here sort of as a stopgap. I didn't intend to keep them in here. Just wanted to see what they'd sound like and whatnot. And they turned out to sound fantastic. I believe these are GFS pickups, which Guitar Fetish. They sell really inexpensive parts that are not bad. And in the case of their GFS pickups, some of them sound great. These really sound great. And also a couple of other obvious changes. I put some white knobs on here. Those may or may not stay. I'm constantly rotating knobs on my guitars. And this tailpiece, which is a very controversial item for a lot of people, how dare you put extra screw holes in your Rickenbacker? Well, the key is it's my Rickenbacker. I love this particular simple tailpiece design. I have it on several guitars, and I believe these were $2.95 a piece, as in $2.95. The string drops in. You can restring the entire guitar in 5 minutes. You can change a string, well, less than a minute, obviously, if it's 5 minutes for the whole thing. I love them. And it's dead solid, stays in tune. I like it, so it is what it is. So this is my my somewhat customized 360. Great guitar. It's my backup to my number one, which eventually I'll show you all my number one, but it'll shock you because, well, I'll give away a bit of the secret. It's a copy, and a Chinese copy, no less. I know, clutch the pearls, perish the thought. But anyway, this is my number two. My number two Rickenbacker style guitar, at least, and I love it. It's a player for sure, and it's a keeper. It's not going anywhere. Oh, I should also mention, just happened to notice, Tom changed out the showlers for black showlers as well, and I love the things he did. I just had to customize it a little more to suit me, and apart from maybe changing out the other two knobs to either all whites or all blacks, I think it's done. So anyway, there's that. Okay, so one thing that was mentioned by a viewer is that I should not copy Trogley. If you're not familiar, there's a Trogley's Guitar Show. He has his own thing. He's been around for several years. He has a huge viewership of hundreds of thousands of viewers. He mostly buys and reviews Gibson guitars. He's a Les Paul freak. He buys expensive guitars, tears them apart, shows you the parts, puts them back together, and then flips them on Reverb, and does a great business with it. I mean, he, as I said, he's got a huge viewership. People love it, but it's always exactly the same thing over and over again. you just change out which guitar it is. It gets a bit tedious, in my opinion. But one thing he did that I thought was really interesting, and I think I'd like to copy, to some degree. He had something called Trade Tuesdays, where he started off with something really low end, and over the course of 6 months to a year, whatever it took, he would buy, sell, and trade his way up to something really fabulous and expensive. In the one case, it was a custom shop Gibson Les Paul, and in one case, it was a custom shop Fender Stratocaster. We're talking guitars well in excess of $3,000 value, and he started off with basically what some people would consider junk. I was intrigued by this idea, especially since I'm here in Nashville, which is called Guitar Town, and for good reason. I used to live around Chicago, big city. You'd think there'd be tons of music gear for sale. Compared to Nashville, which is just a fraction of the size of Chicago, nothing. Facebook Marketplace here, every day, hundreds of new pieces of musical gear. Craigslist, same thing. The place is lousy with guitars. So my thought is between people local and some of you viewers may be interested in some of the items, we'll just see what we can do. And, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. We're out nothing. But it's a cool idea, I think. And I already have my first victim. I have this thing here called a Windaroo, which is a very inexpensive hollow body, although it is a set neck hollow body. Right now it's filthy. Needs some knobs, needs strings and set up, cleaned up. It does have one really catastrophic looking spot here where the binding is peeled away. It looks ugly, but I intend to make this totally playable and then see if I can flip it for something else and then flip that and so on and so forth, and so it goes. I got this for free. One of those great Facebook Marketplace listing things I was talking about. I showed it to buy a couple of amplifiers for a shockingly low price from someone in a nearby city, Murfreesboro, might as well be part of Nashville. And they said, you know what, why don't you take this too? And I said, sure. So this guitar came to me for free. So I'll disclose that. It was completely free. I'm going to clean it up, set it up to the best of my ability, and we'll see what we can get for it, and then continue from there. And I think it'll be fun, And as I said, if it doesn't really work out, I'm out essentially nothing. If you might be interested in this thing, let me know. It's not going to sell for a lot, but whatever I bring in for it, like I said, it's going to be turned around and moved to the next item, and it could be a good time. I'm on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist every day anyway, because I'm always buy, sell, and trading things. And that's something I think I'd like to include you all in as well. I can show you some of the things that I'm finding and do a little gear hunting with you. Maybe even do some on-the-road live, well, maybe not live, but on-the-scene video, which could be fun. I mean, I suppose theoretically it could be live, but I don't know what the benefit would be to that. But it's something to think about. So anyway, I've gone about 24 minutes. I think that's enough for a first episode. Give me your thoughts here. Tell me if you like this idea, this format, where we're going to talk about everything guitar under the sun, review things. I've got a new guitar coming via UPS in the next few days. It's not a Rickenbacker, but it is from a Southern California company. Something I bought as a gig guitar just because I've kind of always wanted one. And as of late, I've sold several items and have a bit of surplus funds on hand, so I'm going to treat myself. It's nothing expensive, but it'll be fun for me, and maybe you'll want to see a review of it since it's a newly released model of a guitar. So tell me what you think, what you like, what you didn't like, what else you might like me to do. Look at the links below. Check out, you could look up my old podcast. You could look up my CD. It's available on all the streaming platforms. You can get it on Amazon. You can actually tell your Amazon Alexa unit to play Steve Rempus Tinfoil Hat, and it'll do it. It's pretty cool, really. I kind of love technology, even though I'm a bit afraid of it, kind of a technophobe, but I'm working on it because I need to do my best to make this show as good as possible. And I'm going to work on it. And I'm going to take you with me. Hopefully, I won't lose too many of you subscribers because of the change in format, but I think you'll appreciate what I'm trying to do here, and I think we're all going to have a lot of fun together. So, until the next time, I'm going to let you go, and as I used to always say, keep on playing, keep rocking, and chime on, because after all, it's only guitars, it's only rock and roll, but I like it. See you next time. Thanks.